Hey guys, I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 17 of Careers Are Weird. I don't even know how to start. So much positive feedback from the stories last week, and I'm so glad that you guys love the episodes because it was literally written and scripted by you guys that listen to the show every single week. So, big love to you guys. This week, we are back with the interviews. And before we get into this episode, can I ask all of you listening and watching, because there's video now, to follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and give this episode a thumbs up. Pretty, please. Now we're going to cue the theme song that I do not have yet. So pretend, guys. But this week, I am joined by my good friend Abigail Smith, aka Bear Vibes Boss, aka a higher education professional. Abby, hello. How are you? Where are you today?
Hi, I am good. I am good. I'm currently in Maryland. As I'm looking outside, it's raining, so that's interesting. It's going to be a great day. But yes, I am currently in the US of A in Maryland.
Wow, rain. Wow, I can't even tell the last time I saw rain. Maybe April.
Right? Right?
So, Abby, I really want to talk to you because you work in an industry where the majority of us think there's only two types of people involved: students and professors. Which,
Mm-hmm.
when you consider the ecosystem of a university campus, that's so far from the truth. There are hundreds of
Right.
roles on campus besides student and professor. That makes the entire university experience.
Mm-hmm. No, that's so true. Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, I think, before going to university undergrad abroad, I think I had similar sentiments. I knew that there was a little bit more because my mom had worked at a university in HR. So I'm like, okay, of course there's going to be HR professionals. But until I went to college, I didn't realize the vast opportunities there were for employment within a university space. So it actually wasn't until like my sophomore year, or was my junior year, one of my supervisor said to me, she's like, you can do this for the rest of your life, right? And I was pretty much working with college students. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you can get a master's in it. I was like, what? So that's what really kind of springboarded me into this career of student affairs. So working directly with college students and ensuring that their holistic development is just not limited to the classroom, but also to the general university space. For the most part, I've worked in residential halls. So, especially working with first year students, so supporting with their matriculation to the university, making sure they get over the homesickness and are able to work with live with their roommates and just make the most out of their for 3 to 4 years at the university space so far.
Wow, that's a really big role. You say it so casually, like, yeah, just making sure that they're all good. That is you play a massive role in people's like university experience because those are the years. Those are some of the most fun, most enjoyable, like most life-changing years ever. So that's incredible. So, spoiler alert to the listeners. Abby is currently a PhD student, and Dr. Abigail Smith is currently loading. So, where do you start the podcast with what's your current job title? Instead, I want us to talk about your last full time role, and then we'll work our way back through the timeline to the motivations to pursue Dr. Smith. That sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Amazing. So, I think the best question to start this is Abby, where were you on January 1st, 2024?
Wow. January 1st, 2024, I was in Thailand. It was actually a glorious experience. I was in Bangkok getting ready for new role as a residence director on Semester at Sea. So Semester at Sea is a college program. It's been around for about since 1962, I believe, 1963, somewhere in the 60s. A U.S. college program for students to pretty much see the world and study with awesome faculty and awesome staff, and obviously their peers. So we went to 10 countries in 100 days. Students are taking classes on the ship, so about 3 to 4 classes. They're from institutions mainly all over the U.S. We did have some international students. Um, International students who were international in the U.S., but also international students who were not taking any classes in the U.S. at all. So yeah, my role was pretty much to support the students' experiences while they were on the ship, ensuring they were, having a great time. They were able to, discover and explore the full opportunities that semester at sea provided, and then also supporting the diversity, equity, and inclusion on the ship. So ensuring that our marginalized students, especially students of color, felt that they belonged and they were a part of the space, so they could make the most of their experience as well.
That and all of that in 100 days.
All of that in 100 days. I know, right? It was maybe like 100 plus, like 105,
But
but yeah,
still, I
100 days.
mean, talk about a way to start the new year. Just like, Abby, where are you for New Year's Eve? Oh, Tyler. Oh, why? Oh, well,
Yeah,
next 4 months I'm going to be on a ship. So I want
I
to actually
know, I
go
know.
into your title and like what you actually did. So, what was your official title at Semester at Sea?
I was a residence director.
And what does that mean? Like, what was a day in the
Mm.
life of a job as residence director?
Yeah, good question. So there was about, say, like 500 students on the ship, and there was about maybe six of us. I think, yes, about six of us, five to six of us who were resident directors. So we all were responsible, like fully responsible for about 70 to 80 students. So that meant that their general well-being, ensuring that, they were having a good time on the ship. If they had any issues in classes, we were like supporting them and connected with their faculty members. If there were any like medical issues, we were also supporting them. Any financial issues, we were able to make sure that that wasn't limiting them from the full experience. And then, just creating programs on the ship. There were some times that we were on the ship for about 5 to 6 days, so that's a long stretch. So, I remember my coworker and I were responsible for doing a talent show for the entire ship. Or we have something called Sea Olympics, where it's like Olympics, but it's on a ship, and each student is a part of kind of like a special group. Like in high school where we had different colors, hosties in Jamaica.
Yes.
So something similar on the ship where everybody had their own color, and they were able to like do different activities to get their house points. So yeah, pretty much that. Ensuring that I worked with a special group when we went to Ghana. We worked with a nonprofit organization. And helped them develop like a social media campaign, and then also do some interviews for some of the employees that they were working with. So yeah, pretty much in a nutshell. I mean, every day was different. We woke up. I usually went to the gym if I could, had breakfast. We had everyone had a 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. global studies class that they went to, and global studies was preparing us for the next port that we were going to, so the next country that we were going to. And then met with any students, tracked down any students. I would have hours in the office. Then we had a staff meeting. So like everybody that was on the student affairs team, was about 12 of us, would meet together daily to, have any updates on the ship, what's upcoming, what, if is anybody struggling, is there any housekeeping that we need to do. And then we would normally go into like afternoon programming. I also supported the Voyagers of Color, so the students of color on the ship, also the Hispanic student community on the ship, and some of our international students as well. So any programming that they had or any questions or concerns, I was supporting them.
What? I'm jealous. It almost sounds like you have one of the few roles in this world that don't revolve around Excel.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there were some Excel sheets that I had to use, any organizing or tracking students down, or,
I am on a
seeing where students,
mission. I am on a mission to
right,
find a
but not any
career.
like data, not any big data.
No, no, no. But I am on a mission to find a career where someone doesn't use an Excel sheet. I like the grip, the chokehold that Microsoft Excel has us all in. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah. No, we use it, but more, yeah, not like big data, but definitely, Google Sheets. I don't think anybody can get away from that.
I'm on a mission to find out. There has to be someone. There has to be
Sure,
someone.
when you find it, let me know.
Oh, I'll be promoting it like crazy. So that is such an epic experience that you got to have. It's a really short one. I mean, 100 days isn't that long, and you got to do all of that in a really tight knit community. Um,
Right.
but opportunities like that don't just come out of thin air. So, what were you doing prior to getting the call to come aboard the ship?
Yeah, so I was actually working in student affairs again. I was in the United Arab Emirates, working at a university there, and in a similar role, but obviously we were on land. So I was supporting the students who lived on campus. I was, in charge of like the residential engagement model. So, like, how do students feel supported living on campus? How are they learning living on campus? Because the residential halls are not just a place where you come and sleep, but also a place where you can like learn, build community, understand what it means to be a part of a multicultural environment, and really growing your personal development. So that's what I was doing for the 3 years that I was in the UAE. And yeah, this opportunity, I really learned about it actually maybe like 7 years prior. And it's funny because actually got excited. I had interviewed and got accepted, and then the big bad COVID hit. So nobody was going on no sea to do nothing. So I had to say no to the opportunity, obviously, back then for about 2 consecutive semesters. But then another opportunity came up again last year, and I was like, you know what? This is the time to do it. I didn't get my time during COVID. Let me go aboard.
Wow. And you find, at least, you know what? The timing is right. When the time is right, the time is right and it's your time.
The timing is right, yeah. And it was really hard to leave that past role. But I think I hit a point where I was looking for something more, especially from my professional development. And I had to like take that into my own hands. And I just knew that the type of global, whether it be a faculty or administrator, would be, better served. For my students having this global experience and having this experience in this moving campus across the world. So for me it was definitely hard to leave my coworkers, hard to leave my students, but sometimes we have to make those decisions, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's not a wrong or right decision, it's just a decision that we have to make. Obviously leaving the UAE was very hard. I worked really hard to get there. I made great community, had great connections, like professional and personal connections, and I hope that it's a place that I can go back to one day. But for me, the time was just right in terms of thinking about the next few years of my life and what I wanted that to look like.
Yeah, that you have to just trust yourself with timing, and you have to realize that even if you move somewhere, it's not like you have to be there forever, and it's not like you can't go back.
Right,
So just
right.
listen to yourself and make those choices. But that's so cool. So I need to better understand then. What did you study in university, like undergrad?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So I actually went into undergrad wanting to do psychology. For some reason, I wanted to be a marriage and I think like family counselor or someday work at the UN. And I'm like, UN is still on my goal, but not doing psych. I was like, this is too micro for me. I need to look more big picture. Like, what is causing some of these systemic issues? And I did sociology in high school for CAPE. So sociology came natural for me in those courses. So I ended up majoring in sociology in undergrad with a minor in international relations with a focus on the Caribbean. So as I mentioned, like my plan, I wasn't really thinking what else to do after undergrad. I think just work for the UN. But that's when my supervisor spoke to me. I was like, you can get your master's in like student affairs in higher education. And I was like, oh, okay, that would be great. A skill set to have or experience to have. Maybe thinking about, eventually going back and working at UE and just bringing my experiences and understanding the local experiences and how I could, support that system. Um, so yeah, I ended up going to get my master's in the U.S. as well in higher education, student affairs. That was 2 years of a degree, and I was able to really dive deep into understanding, especially U.S. higher education, what theories there are when we're thinking about supporting college students, challenging college students. What are the bureaucracies that exist within higher education that make some of that work difficult sometimes, who are like marginalized populations within the college environment, and how do we create better access for them. So yeah, it's kind of more of like a specialized field, but definitely something that I now have a greater appreciation of seeing myself as an educator and understanding my role within the education space.
So then why, like, what were you involved in that made that professor come to you in like your junior year and say, oh, you can get your higher education, your master's in this? Like, what was that academic experience that you
Yeah,
had?
and it was actually like a supervisor. So I was a residence assistant. So that meant that I was in charge of a group of maybe like 30 to 40 students in the residential hall. And then I was a senior resident assistant. So I was in charge of an entire building. And I guess I was just really good at my job. Like, of course, I was really good at my job. Really seemed like something I shined in and I excelled in. So she really pushed me to be like, yeah, you can actually do this as a full-time career. Like you can support college students as a full-time career. So I was definitely just a leader on the college campus within the college environment, which really springboarded my career into this.
That's so interesting. And of course, naturally, you're going to be good at your job. Like, of
Right.
course. So, wait, as a supervisor, what was her actual role?
So she was supervising the resident assistants. So pretty much what I was doing then back in the UAE, she was doing at my undergrad.
Ah, okay.
But she was a full time professional staff member, supporting like student leaders, especially those within the residential halls.
Fair enough. So then,
Hmm.
that answered my next question. I was going to ask you if your first role in student life was something that you actively pursued. Like, how'd you get that RA role?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was in first year. It's funny because my first year job, I was like the manager of the basketball team. I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day. I was like just doing video for the basketball team. And then I think my RA encouraged me. She's like, "Oh yeah, you seem like you'd really enjoy programming or would really be good at this. So why don't you give it a shot?" And also, I was an international student in the States. An RA came with a free room, came with free, board with free food.
Oh, nice.
I was like, of course, sign me up. So I had applied, and I was also involved. Like I was Interact president back in high school, so I was always looking for something to be more involved in, and definitely create a space and sense of belonging for people. So yeah, that's kind of how I just got into it, and then I did that for the next 3 years of college.
That's smart. That's a smart.
Yep,
No, I
yep,
don't, the common theme in all of this sounds like from the get go when you started uni, you had strong mentorship and strong supervisor.
definitely.
That,
Definitely. I mean, I went to a really small university. There's only like 500 students, so it was not. It was definitely not hard for me to go up in somebody's office and be like, "Hey, how did you do this? How did you get into this career? How did you make sense of this world?" So it was funny because even after I graduated, ended up graduating a semester early. Big up those Cape grades. So I was able to graduate a semester early, and my undergrad actually hired me for that spring semester before I went off to graduate school. So, even within that environment, they're really supportive in me as a professional and really gave me my first like professional experience, which I'm, forever grateful for.
yeah, that first role, that role where they trust you, they hire you, they believe in you, even though you don't really have the experience yet.
Yep.
Gratitude. I think everyone should have that
Right.
gratitude for your first role.
Right.
So you started studying at university, you ended up working at university, you back studying at university now. So you've come off the
Hmm.
boat at semester at sea in April, and now you're doing your PhD. Was that always the plan?
Yes. So it was, it's really funny. It was always a plan because, even from undergrad, I always said my main goal is to be a university president, right? Right now, I don't know if that's really what I want to do, but I always knew, obviously, being a university president, I would have to get a doctorate. So it was always a part of the plan. It was just like, when would that happen, right? Like, obviously, and it's funny because um, before I got to the UAE, had also applied for my doctorate and had also got in. But at the same time, I got that job opportunity for the UAE. And I was like, oh, I mean, it was like post COVID. It was like during COVID, post Trump, a lot of Black Lives Matter stuff happening in the US. And I'm like, yeah, get me to Dubai, get me to the UAE
Hmm.
right now. So I actually deferred and said no. And again, another mentor, last October, he came to visit the UAE and he sat me down and he was like, listen, like, you've done great work here. I know getting a doctorate is a goal of yours. It feels like it will fit right into your life right now. And you can always come back to the UAE and also do great work after. Um, but this might be the time that you want to, think about applying again and just getting it done. And I'm like, yeah, because this is something I generally wanted to do. I think when I told people that, yeah, I'm leaving or I'm going to get my doctorate or I got into a program, it wasn't a surprise because it's something that I've always talked about. It's just when would it fit into my life? So it was definitely hard, as I said, like not going back to full time employment after a semester at sea. Definitely a financial security decision that I made. But I'm of the belief that when it's your time, it's your time, and if it's in alignment with God's plan, it will literally all work out. So even though I'm not necessarily a full-time professional right now, I see getting a doctorate as a part of my career progression,
Absolutely.
because it is still a part of my career, right? Whether I go into the faculty route, whether I go into back into full administration, it's still a part of my career. And being able to have these credentials is only gonna, do more for me as I think about the next few years of my life.
So smart, so logical, so poised, always. Like you know what you're talking about, and I love that for you. And yeah, it is a hard one transitioning from full-time work
Hmm.
to full-time student. That's a massive life
Yeah,
sort of change. But
yeah.
if you're not open to the risk, you'll never be open to the reward.
Exactly.
So,
Right. And my friend, he put me onto this earlier in a semester at sea. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Right. So now, now I live my life by this. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I'm like, so are you, whatever you're getting into, is it going to be worth it pretty much in the long term? And I'm like, 100%. Like, going to a PhD program is a huge squeeze, but the juice that I'll get from it is going to be worth it in the end. So even though I tell people, it's 4 years, I think people are like, oh my gosh, you're giving up 4 years of your life in your 30s. And I'm like, well, if I don't give it up now, I can give it up in my 40s or my 50s. So
yeah.
why not just do it now and see what opportunities come about?
Whether or not you do the PhD, you'll be 4 years old though. Like
Exactly.
you're gonna be whatever age you're at plus
Ex-
4 years, regardless.
exactly. Exactly. Good point to way to put it.
Exactly. So I'm curious about next steps because a lot of things influence a decision like PhD. So you said you have two potential routes if you're to stay in this university pathway. So you've got academic, you said, and administrative. Just kind of a high
Mm-hmm.
level so that people kind of understand what roles are available in university life. What would those two routes be?
Yeah, so I mean full-time faculty. So whether I want to, I'm getting my PhD in like education policy. So whether I want to be a faculty member within like the College of Ed going forward, or if I want to do more administrative work. So do I want to maybe work with, students who study abroad, or, it could be like first year students, or any
Oh.
internationalization effort at a university? Or do I want to work outside of the university? Do I want to work for like US, AID, or do I want to work for the UN or the World Bank or something, or UNESCO, something that kind of merges education and being kind of like an expert within that
Ah,
space? So
so the admin route
opportunities are
can
vast.
be outside of the campus.
Yeah,
Versus
yeah,
otherwise,
definitely.
you'd be like, would that be like becoming, if you do the professor route, that's like going to be tenure or something like that? I heard them talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tenure track. So, do your research and, they're kind of like, bound within the professorate. But, there's still opportunities for you to do all this stuff as well. So I'm still deciding what I want to do. I'm going to have this experience kind of lead me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So then, knowing what you know now about this space that you've been in for so long, what advice would you give to
Mm-hmm.
someone fresh out of university who might be interested in a career in student life or university administration?
That's a good question. I think make use of the opportunities that you have available to you. So even when I was in undergrad, like I was doing, so much. Yeah, it was all new to me, right? After going to school in Jamaica and just having these opportunities in undergrad, I was open. I was saying yes, obviously as it was within my capacity and not burning myself out, but just kind of saying yes and exploring the differences, and just trusting that your career path is something that you're interested in and it excites you. Because even for me, I remember once I came home to Jamaica and I was explaining to people what I did, and they're like, why are you doing that? Like, why you don't go to law or engineering or be a doctor? Like, what's you working in a university for? And I was like, it's something that's important to me, something that I find value in. And I think once you know that within yourself, then it becomes so much easier. So there's going to be a lot of noise because people just don't understand the university space. There's going to be a lot of noise because outside of being maybe a regular classroom teacher or a professor, people don't see value within the roles sometimes within colleges or universities. But if it's something that you're passionate about, something that you're interested in, at least for this time being, like you don't have to do it for the rest of your life. You can decide, like, actually want to switch and do marketing, or I want to switch and going to data analytics, or I want to switch and do project management. Like you can do that too. But if it's something that you have the drive and passion for now, like just know that opportunities are out there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool, and that's why. really wanted to talk to you because at the start I said too many of us think that within a university you've got two things: you've got students
Hmm.
and you've got professors, and
Right.
the roles in campus, such as yours, have such a great ability to impact the lives of the students
Yeah.
to a
Hmm.
greater the degree than sometimes education itself, because I know a lot of people who don't remember one thing they learned in university, but they remember all
Yeah.
the experiences, all the relationships, all the friendships, all the high times and the low times that they experience when they're on campus. It takes
Yeah.
non-student or professor roles to actually have that sort of impact, so you're doing really important
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, and so many of the skills that students also learn outside of the classroom, I mean, makes them a better nurse, makes them a better engineer, makes them a better dentist, makes them a better, financial advisor. So even if they don't end up pursuing education, some of those like leadership roles that we help to support them in, help them grow and develop in, are transferable skills that they're able to take with them to whatever field they go into. So I think that for me, like sometimes when I see some of my students, especially online, because a bunch of them will follow me like on Instagram, I'm like, oh my gosh, now you're this big director of this thing, and I know you're using like the skills that you had when you were an RA, and I supervised you in. So it's always like beautiful and wonderful to see how it all comes together.
Yeah. Oh my god. And that's just basically teaching them soft skills. And soft
Mm-hmm.
skills are in such great demand right now. I think everyone's realized that yeah, you
Yep.
can teach hard skills. It's the soft skills that
Yep.
soft skills are getting you hired now. 2024, soft skills.
Yep. Yep.
And
Soft
there's a
skills.
soft
Soft
skills
skills led.
gap in the market.
Yeah,
So that
definitely. Because a bunch of people that go in and they can't like talk to people. They don't know how to lead a group. They don't know how to lead a meeting. They don't know how to do, any engagements or, understand like different marginalized groups. So some of these roles on a college campus really do support students in doing that.
yeah. So that's really, really cool. I'm really happy for you. I'm really proud of you. I mean, Dr. Smith loading is like
Loading. I know it's gonna be a long 4 years, but as I said, the juice will be worth the
the
squeeze.
juice will be worth the squeeze. I feel like should that be the title of this episode? The juice.
Yes, it's worth the squeeze.
No, honestly, Abby, it's been so much fun talking to you. And I feel like you're someone who's really open to students reaching out to you. So I'm
Of
gonna
course.
link up your LinkedIn in all of this. Guys, if you're into this education space, university admin, and you want a mentor, because I feel like what I've gotten from you here, Abby, is you're so open to mentorship because you've received
Mm-hmm.
great mentorship in your career thus far.
Yep.
And I feel like one of the things you guys should definitely take from this episode is seek out mentors, say yes
Yep.
to
100%.
opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
because they
Yep,
will.
and that's me, right? Sometimes the people that come across my LinkedIn, I'm like, I don't know them, but they look like work that I want to do or work I'm interested in, and I'm going to reach out. And even if it's not, a full-on mentor, it's someone that I've seek some kind of mentorship conversation from, and that's also supported me. So, whatever field you're in, it's always great to make connections because you just never know, what advice or what support or what information that somebody else could like pass on to you.
Exactly, guys. Seek out mentors. There's a lot of people, and also noticed this in my own life and my own career. There are lots of people who are willing to answer your questions if you are willing to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's this old saying like, well, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, or like when
Yeah.
the student is ready, the master will appear. All those old time sayings that you might think just some weird mumbo jumbo wisdom thing. A lot of them actually stand true when you're looking for mentors. So many people are actually willing to help you, especially when you're young.
Yep. That's so true.
Man, Abby, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast this week and telling us about university administration and student life and the very cool roles that happen in your life when you're just willing to say yes. Um,
Thank you. No problem. Thanks for having me and for, definitely creating this space as we matriculate through our very weird careers and make sense of the world, especially as, millennials or Gen Zs.
yeah, guys, this was so much fun. I'm going to link up everything for Abby in the show notes. And until next Wednesday, stay weird and stay ambitious, my friends.